Exhibit 114 is a portion of, excuse me?
Yes.
And is that an accurate copy of the portion of that journal?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd offer 114.
Defense would like to renew objection. Court has already heard argument about this.
I'm going to admit 114 over objection.
Thank you. Your Honor, permission to publish?
Yes.
Now, Sergeant Gray, what does 114 say?
You want me to read it to you?
Yes, please.
Also, I enjoy taking video shots of pretty girls in shorts or skirts, beautiful women of every age. I sometimes use these images to for self-stimulation.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Curry, questions for Sergeant Gray?
Sergeant, you recall reviewing these numerous journals alleged to have been made by Mr. Powell, correct?
Yes, sir.
They all had a similar sort of dating system up the top of it?
Yes, sir.
At some point, were you able to determine by looking at the various journals together that this purported to be dated from 2004?
You know, I don't recall exactly when that exact date on that journal entry. They were dated. The journal entries are written like that. As of for the date pattern, I can't verify that for you.
Okay.
I can't remember that one.
Okay. Do you recall testifying previously on this case in a scenario where you were sworn in like this?
Yes, sir.
And you recall trying to figure out and looking at various exhibits and figuring out that a certain number up on the heading was some sort of volume number, correct?
Yes, sir.
You recall figuring out that the V111 was some sort of volume number as far as what you determined by previously looking at those exhibits. Is that?
I do recall what you're referring to is what from the previous testimony in the past. It's been a bit of time since this has occurred.
Sure.
So I'm not versed on exactly the pattern of our dates and how we came to that conclusion.
Do you recall that being handed, looking at multiple journal entries and kind of comparing the different headings that were shown on those?
I do.
And you recall being asked if it appeared that heading appeared to be taken from 2004?
I don't recall exactly when, if I was asked if that occurred in 2004.
Okay.
It is entirely possible, but I don't remember.
Okay. And that would have been just your interpretation of that anyway, right?
Yes, sir.
You had no way of knowing otherwise when it was taken,
Yes,
or when
sir.
it was written.
Yes.
Item number that has been identified, R number 114, or no, excuse me, not 114, the item you were referring to previously as disc number 12.
Yes,
It had a large number of folders, correct?
it did.
And in some of those folders were the pictures, some of those subfolders were the folders you're referring to labeled specifically taking bath 1, taking bath 2, and back window, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there were some other photos, folders that had pictures of Mr. Powell, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there were some other photos that had pictures of other members of the Powell family, specifically like, do you recall photos of Josh's graduation? And maybe it should be easy about, if I showed you you came up with a list of just all the files on that disk, right?
Pardon?
You came up with, when you were putting together and examining this, you created a file list, or at least a list of yourself. It wasn't a copied straight from the disk, but you had, in your report, had written down the list of all.
Yes, the way it was titled, yes.
Right. And I think, if I may approach, Your Honor, I think we have that marked. Okay, so I'm going to show you what's now, or what's been marked as 72. And you can tell me if you recognize that, what that is. Don't tell me what it is until you look at it and see if you do recognize it. And I'll then ask you a question.
This is a follow-up report from me reviewing several items of evidence from our search warrant.
Okay, and it contains multiple other items, not just the one we're talking about, right?
Correct.
Okay, if you flip through there, can you find a subsection of that list that is referred to as from disk number 12? I think it's about page 4 or 5, I think.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if you scan through that list of files from, of folders of files on disk 12, up at the top, I think, of the next page, you see if it, and look up to me after it refreshes your election, just maybe the top inch of that.
Okay.
Okay, so you get a chance to read through those?
The first first sentences, yes.
Okay. Was there a disk of files that were of Josh Powell's graduation?
Not on this particular page that I see, unless it's on the next one.
Maybe you can glance to the next one. I might have directed you to the wrong location.
You can approach the witness stand if you want, and just
Point it out. I think it's page 7 here. Sorry, 72, top of 72, right?
Yes.
Yes, there were some pictures that were a folder that was labeled about Josh Powell's UW graduation, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And there were also various folders containing pictures of Susan Powell, correct?
Yes.
And the specific folders that you're referring to, taking bath 1, taking bath 2, and back window, I don't mean to be getting that wrong, but what was the name of the third file? That counsel was asking about specifically. Out of back window, something like that?
Something similar to that, yes.
Those were not contained in any subdirectory connected to any other specific files, correct?
Find that one for you. Not that I can tell from my report.
Okay. And you don't have any specific recollection that they were in a subdirectory with other specific files?
Well, it does say subfolder titled various conflicting numbers, so it's a subfolder of of what I initially put.
Okay.
So
No other questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Nelson.
Sergeant Gray, on disc number 12, there were a number of folders containing photographs of defendant Stephen Powell, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And in these folders, the defendant Stephen Powell was nude, is that correct?
Yes.
And there were file folders on disc 12 where the defendant was masturbating, is that correct?
Yes.
And we're not talking just one folder here, we're talking multiple folders of these sorts of images, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And in the upper right-hand corner of Exhibit 72 on page 70, we've talked a little bit about this folder entitled Neighbors, and your report indicates that there were several subfolders within the Neighbors folder. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in particular, there's a subfolder named Alexandra. What is your description of that folder?
Photos of a teenage female walking a dog around Stephen Powell's home. There's one of Stephen posing in his underwear at the bathroom.
Okay, so within that subfolder in the neighbors directory, there's actually a photo of the defendant in his underwear. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Sergeant. I don't have any further questions.
Mr. Curry, anything further for Sergeant Craig?
Sergeant, looks like you have what? 1, 2, 3 and a half, maybe 4 pages of single-space listing of files, of folders, just from that disk one, number 12, correct?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask more relevant. There were literally hundreds of folders on that file, right? Or on that disk, right?
There was a lot, yes.
No other questions?
Did you want this stuff? You're here, you know?
Anything based on that?
No.
Thank you. Sergeant Gray, you can sit down. Thank you very much.
Can I have just a moment, Sergeant?
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, state rests.
Okay. Jurors, at this time, the state rests, and we're going to take a brief recess. It'll be 5 to 10 minutes. Thank you. We're at recess.
All rise, please. Leave your notepad. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Thanks, please be seated. So, first I want to make a record, there was a pretrial motion